Hey there! Of late, I've been watching a lot of advertisements on the television promoting beauty products. For instance, we have fairness creams, hair colors, contour palettes, foundations, powders, and the list goes on. Well, these beauty products may, in most likelihood, enhance the outer beauty, but they do very little to surface the inner beauty that a person might have. Talking about beauty brings me to a poem that I have in store for you. For Anne Gregory by William Butler Yeats. And before I get into the poem, let me tell you about the life and works of this man who needs no introduction. William Butler Yeats was born in 1865 in Dublin, Ireland. Yeats was educated in London and in Dublin. In his earlier days, his dramas and plays outweighed his poetry. His first volume of verse appeared much later in 1887. The Countess Kathleen, The Land of Heart's Desire, Kathleen in Houlihan, The King's Threshold, and Deirdre are amongst his best-known plays. Most of Yeats' greatest works were written after he was awarded the Nobel Prize. His poetry, The Wild Swans at Coole, Michael Roberts and the Dancer, The Tower, The Winding Stair, and other poems, and last poems and plays made him one of the outstanding and most influential 20th century poets writing in English. The poem For Anne Gregory was published in 1933 as part of his collection of poetry entitled The Winding Stair and Other Poems. This poem is a conversation between the poet and Anne Gregory. What are they arguing about? Let's read and find out more. For Anne Gregory by William Butler Yeats. Never shall a young man, thrown into despair by those great honey-colored ramparts at your ear, love you for yourself alone and not your yellow hair. But I can get a hair dye and set such color there, brown or black or carrot, that young men in despair may love me for myself alone and not my yellow hair. This poem is most likely a conversation between Yeats and the young Anne Gregory. Talking about the setting of the poem, Yeats spent every summer in Lady Gregory's house at Coole Park in County Galway. Later, he purchased a ruined Norman castle in the neighborhood. While living there, he spent a lot of time with Lady Gregory's family, including young Anne. It appears that this poem is set in Coole itself. It could be either at Lady Gregory's home or at Yeats's. But we cannot reject the fact that the poem may be set entirely in Yeats's imagination and that the conversation with Anne never really took place. Now let's move on and look at each stanza individually to understand the poem in detail. Now in this stanza, the poet is speaking to young Anne Gregory. He describes her hair as the same color as of honey. He also describes how her hair falls over her ear, entirely enveloping it with the strands. This makes the poet think of the walls that may be built surrounding a castle for protection. The poet is well aware of the fact that her beautiful hair has attracted many men towards her, and hence he advises her to not despair for the few rejections made by her. Also, the poet is sure that all the young men who claim to be in love with her actually love her for her yellow hair, that is, for her appearance alone. They do not know who she really is, and hence they cannot appreciate her inner beauty, being enamored by her outer appearance only. Well, that's not a very kind gesture by the young men. Now in this stanza, we see Anne Gregory giving a response to the poet's statement that men love her only for her outward appearance. Although she does agree with the poet's point of view, she says that she can easily change the color of her hair by dyeing it. That is, she suggests changing her physical appearance. We also see that she thinks about the colors she might dye her hair with and mentions brown, black and carrot as possible options. She feels that these are less appealing than her yellow-colored hair. She feels that if she looked ugly, then probably some men would look beyond her physical appearance and love her for the person she actually is. Now, do you agree with her? Anyway, we shall discuss about that a little later. But before we go on to the concluding stanza of the poem, we shall take a break here. And I will be back soon in the next video. Until then, take care. Bye-bye. TutorMate. For more amazing video lectures, download the free app on the Apple App Store or Google Play Store.